What is up? Another edition of Three Dudes Reviews. It's really only one dude. Get some Humboldt love from my boy Jason Brandy at Public. Go down and check him out. Get some of his stuff. He's the best. He doesn't sponsor this thing, whatever it is, but it's all good. Back. I've got one book, 2 CDs, and a history lesson for you today because I'm a geek and I like to do that kind of shiz. It is my birthday eve. I turn 48 tomorrow. I feel old as fuck. So I got some older stuff. It's not super old, but everything's kind of been book-ish so far, and that's cool. So I brought another book out. This one isn't as in-depth as most of the other books that I've kind of brought out, strutted out of my collection. But it's a lot of fun. Hollywood Rocks, and they did a CD compilation as well. I think there's several volumes of that, but I'm not sure. Some of those, the LA Hollywood scene compilations have versions of songs, but they're not by the bands that really did them. It might be like one dude and then some other singer guys, or it's kind of weird. You gotta look into those when you buy them. You gotta do your homework. But this one's super cool. See how cool it is? It's like totally black. This one's just kind of a lot of pics and flyers from that era. It's funny to me, if you go onto YouTube and deep dive YouTube, you can see this guy, Juan Croucier, when he was playing in the first iteration of Dokken. There were so many of those Sunset bands that kind of filtered through each other. They were here, they were there, members would come and go, they would form other bands, they would leave. I love Rat, one of my favorite bands from that era. I think London is one of those infamous bands that way. So many players that went on to form and do other things were in London. I know Nikki Sixx is infamously in that band for a while. But you can see it's kind of all just a hodgepodge of different stuff. It's a lot of fun. It probably won't tell you anything you don't already know, but it's fun to have. Your kids will look through it and wonder what the fuck you were doing, why you were wearing all kinds of crazy clothes. Fun story about that era is I was growing up. I was 10 in 82, so towards the mid to back end of the 80s, I would cruise down to the bay and hang out with my sister, and a couple houses down, and they had a kid around my age, and one weekend we decided, well, let's just hang out and drive to LA. So we did. We told, the same old story. Hey, I'm going to stay over here. Hey, I'm going to stay over here. Nobody really cared. And we mobbed down on a Friday. Got there by Friday night. Hung out on the strip. Jeans and a t-shirt. Super out of place. Way too young. People looked at us like we were aliens, and they were dressed in spandex and the hair. We couldn't get in anywhere. Slept in the car, had a blast, and drove back the next day. It was pretty awesome. I have a love-hate with the art of the greatest hits record. For a lot of things, I like to be somewhat of a completionist. I like to have a band's catalog so you can listen to their records as they intended them to be, start to finish, one album, spin it, get your head around it, get a feel for it, deep dive the tracks you wouldn't normally hear. What I found as I go along with living in an apartment and having a collection is you've only got so much space. Do I need every single Accept record? No, you really only ever need 2. And this band's kind of the same way. See if you can see that. It's the Flock of Seagulls greatest hits. Could I have their entire discography? I could. Is it necessary? Probably not. Are you going to learn anything about this band from diving the deep tracks? I doubt it. But this gives you everything you could possibly want. The big ones, I Ran and Space Age Love Song and Photograph of You and that kind of stuff. And then some really cool stuff you don't hear a lot of. And I really liked this band because when I Ran hit, it was kind of like, is that what tomorrow's going to sound like? You know, that new wavy, techno, electronica kind of keyboard synth-driven kind of stuff. Gary Newman and all that whatnot. And really kind of dug this. It's probably really all you ever need. Save space. I guess if you really wanted to save space and you cared, you'd go digital. But fuck that shit. I'm not doing that. My last one comes with a little bit of a thing. I know that there's an argument that Sabbath started metal. I don't know if I want to get to that argument or if I agree with that argument or if it's worth having that argument. There were probably proto-metal bands around for a long time. I know the Beatles wrote Helter Skelter because they wanted to beat The Who at having the heaviest song. So the ideas of doing heavy music was around before Sabbath really came to bear. You had psychedelic rock, you had all these things, but as Bob Ross said, I apologize, there are no mistakes, only happy accidents. And the happy accident that happened is Iommi losing the tips of his fingers on his fretboard hand that allowed them to have a workaround. So when he lost his fingertips in that accident, he had to work around and try to figure out how to keep playing and without the intense pain, and he was forming tips of his fingers with different kind of material, and that caused him to downtune his guitar, which gave us this thick, heavy, atmospheric, doomy, sludgy kind of sound that we would get from Sabbath. And when they split, Sabbath split, when Ozzy took off, I guess Sabbath didn't really split, they just kept doing it with different singers. There are multiple Sabbath eras, and all of them have good stuff. Tony Iommi kind of branched out with different singers away from the Sabbath moniker, if you will. So maybe the most famous Sabbath album that isn't a Sabbath album is Fused. Let's see if I can get the glare off that. It's Tony Iommi and Glenn Hughes. Glenn Hughes plays bass, he sings, he was in one of the iterations of Deep Purple, incredible voice, great player. And he's got this almost shrieking kind of style at times that you would think might not pair well with that doomy, sludgy sound that Iommi brought to the table, but it works so well. So well that I really wish they would get back together and do something else. Maybe bring Geezer along for his play and his writing ability. Because this album is a monster. You could see the difference when Ozzy left. His solo work kind of went virtuosity level, right? He was the virtuoso type guitarist. He had Randy Rhoads. They were still a little Sabbathy influence in those first two Ozzy solo records, which they actually recorded at the same time and then released them like a year apart or whatever. And then he of course has Jakey Lee, and then he almost came kind of full circle with Zakk Wylde, because Zakk was so influenced by the Sabbath playing that he brought a little bit of those doomy riffs kind of back into some of Ozzy's solo stuff. But when you went out with the Sabbath stuff, the Iommi style is a style you can tell. It is riff heavy. It is even if the vocals are soaring, his riffs are still like in that low end. That back end is, those drums are heavy, the riffs are good, the bass is clean. It's a lot of fun to listen to. If you're into it, either one of these guys, and you haven't listened to Fused, pick this up. It's a monster record. It's not really well known. I don't even know if people are like, oh, did they do something together? You could have easily slapped the Black Sabbath moniker on this, and it probably would have sold fairly well. Although towards the end of Sabbath, they weren't selling all that great anyway until Ozzy came back. I saw them a couple times when Ozzy came back. They were pretty rad, but he's getting to that point where he can't sprint around and do all that crazy stuff anymore. But still a lot of fun. So I hope you're all doing well. Cover your faces. Wear the masks outside. Let's not get sick. Let's not get our friends and family sick, and our community and our neighbors. Let's hunker down and beat this thing so I can get back with the boys, talk a little shit, and do the Three Dudes thing again. My birthday's tomorrow. You probably won't see me, but you might. And then the next time you see me, I will be one fucking year closer to 50. Jesus. All right, man. Rock on. Horns up. Metal forever. I love you guys. Later.